radio has some really fantastic shows, but the one that started it all was The Boys. The seasons are just that far apart. I think, it's been 2 years since season 3. But the show is back, and better than ever. Oh my God, this is so good. And at a time when so often content, movies and television doesn't deliver on its potential or promise, fans of this show will be eating good this season. Yum, 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 nom, 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 nom. It's so good. You're going to be so stuffed and full, but want more. Once again, 8 glorious episodes, and each one features incredible moments, both big and small. I loved being able to binge it, but I think that the weekly release model, although they kick off with 3 episodes this week, I've been working on my breakdown for it. So much to discuss. And even there, you're like, I wish they'd drop these individually because then we could really get into them more. So I like the weekly release because, again, I think it allows it to become like a cultural moment every week instead of just something you enjoy in private. But that you might want to watch a lot of these in private. It's still a very graphic show. In fact, I would say in some ways more so than ever. All right, so where to start in this non-spoiler review? Well, one thing is the recent headline that showrunner Eric Kripke is declaring war on MAGA, and he doesn't care if you stop watching his show. And yes, it's true. The Boys Season 4 is aggressively anti-MAGA, which is a bold choice considering that the show has become such a big hit because in the past, it's been able to appeal to both sides of the political spectrum. So the question is, will the far right realize that season 4 is making fun of them? I think they will. I guess the better question is, will it bother them? So much so that they'll stop watching the show. I think maybe not, because the depiction is startlingly accurate. So why would someone, if they already like it, be offended that you depicted it accurately? So that headline is interesting because it might still be well written and crafted from a business perspective. I'm really curious to see the reaction to this. Because I think there's some chance those groups will still love season 4, particularly when you see how events unfold. For instance, Firecracker, clear amalgam of Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene. But instead of being a politician, she's a MAGA commentator. The character is so well done that you will feel about her the way you feel about Boebert and Taylor Greene. The Boys has often reminded me in the past of the Colbert Report, which brilliantly walked the thin line between comedy and confirmation, giving the show such a broad audience. In fact, so broad that Colbert was eventually rewarded with The Late Show. I mean, he did a lot of stuff himself by making sure his contract was perfectly timed to when Letterman's would be up, et cetera, et cetera. But, he became extremely popular with the Colbert Report. Then, interestingly, once he got The Late Show, he went hardcore liberal. And he certainly had a moment, maybe to distance himself from his Colbert Report persona. And he certainly had a moment during Trump's term as president. But I don't think Colbert has ever been quite as popular as he was when he straddled the political divide. And again, the show is very aggressive, but it's also really accurate. So I'm not quite sure how people are going to react. I'm curious to hear your thoughts when you watch the show. It's going to get some kind of emotional response out of you. Then, of course, I'm sure you've seen the new Homelander DLC for Mortal Kombat 1. But when I was watching the trailer for that, the gameplay trailer, and Homelander was punching and kicking and fighting, I was like, what's weird about this? And I realized that Homelander doesn't actually fight that much on the show. Sure, he's had his iconic moments and he has more coming. Part of the reason he doesn't fight a lot on the show is because it's a streaming series, not a multi-billion-dollar movie. For instance, The Boys cost about $90 million a season, whereas The Acolyte, in comparison, is double that. But both are 8 episodes, about 45 minutes apiece. Anyway, back to Homeland. I wonder where, I have to honestly tell you, watching The Boys, you have to kind of wonder where all that money goes. I guess it goes to the world building, which is so strong that you really can believe everything that they do. So, it's obviously paying off. All right, so back to Homelander. The Boys has done such a good job establishing how powerful he is, and also that he ain't afraid to use it in the most twisted and sick ways he can think of, that he doesn't have to fight. Because the threat of what he would potentially do is so great, he can simply command anyone to do anything for fear not just of death, but a torturous, twisted death. And maybe not just for you, but your loved ones as well. And this is used to the greatest extent yet for The Boys Season 4. It is so weird to watch. I mean, you could argue it's Homelander's true superpower. And sometimes it feels like he's the Purple Man. But it's even more shocking because Homelander's victims still have free will. They are actively choosing to obey him. Because really, when you think about it, what choice do they have? And it often still doesn't work out for them. Whew. I think that's why Homelander is drawn to Butcher. Still the only person on the planet, it seems, who's willing to stand up to him. But this season, Butcher is distracted by his illness, which of course has been brought on by the Temp V he was using last season. While Homelander is distracted by trying to raise his son, Ryan, who's now with him. Well, Butcher is concerned about Ryan too, which not only remains a focal point this season, but because the actor has finally gotten old enough, they can really dive into this story finally. And it's so rewarding. I love the Ryan stuff. Also, with Homelander so powerful, The Boys Season 4 becomes like a Cold War story. With the looming threat so great, everyone goes underground with a focus on espionage type activities and interactions, which I have to say is really interesting. You know, with another group of writers and creatives, you might be like, where's my super fights? But here you're like, yes, tell me more. I love it. Maybe because Homelander's just so frickin' sick. All right. On that note, have you ever read The Boys comic on which this show is based? I've perused it. I don't have to really read it that much, even though I'm covering the show, because the show is just so far off story-wise from what they did there. It's really just inspiration. But the comic is beyond disturbed and perverse. Incredibly graphic. And The Boys Season 4 is the closest I've seen the show get to the source material in that regard. I thought it had caught up, but then I was talking to a friend of mine who reminded me of some of the scenes in The Boys comic, and I was like, no, that still is by far and away the grossest. All right, so really sick stuff this season because it's got such strong intellectual commentary and excellent character development and, as I said, world building. To me, at least, it makes it more palatable than the comic. You know, to me, the comic almost always came across as almost entirely shock value. So that's why I've never been a fan of the comic. But the show has so many other facets to it that the other stuff, I think, works. It doesn't bother me here for some reason. I think the show just handles it really well. As I said, the show is aggressively anti-MAGA this season, but they're taking aggressive shots at a whole lot more than just politics. For instance, Hollywood really gets it as well. I couldn't believe some of the things they said. I was like, how are they going to go to Comic-Con and see the people from DC and especially Marvel after taking these shots at them? I mean, the show, thanks to its success, has gotten incredibly bold. But also, you're like, where's the lie? So I guess Eric Kripke and company can just mischievously smile and pull a Dennis the Menace before running away from Kevin Feige backstage at Hall H or whatever. All right, so how's the cast this season? Well, honestly, Anthony Starr's Homelander continues to be the heart and soul of this show, and you just really can't imagine the series without him. And just when you think there's nowhere left to take the character, as many of us kind of felt towards the end of season 3, boy, do Kripke, his team of writers, and Starr prove that there is so much more to explore. It's exciting. And as Homelander becomes more and more powerful, he not only continues to be like an evil Superman trope, but begins to take on shades of the Joker as well. Anthony Starr's laugh in episode 4. Just wait till you hear it. It was just, maybe that's another reason that the perverse, disturbing stuff doesn't bother me so much, because it's just so well done. You're like, 'tis art! Where instead of, I think that the comic is just salacious. All right, Carl Urban also continues to balance out Homelander. Anthony Starr gets a lot of the attention, but I think Carl Urban is also crucial to the success of this show. But for a lot of this season, he's not at 100% because of his illness. But just you wait. It is definitely a slow burn. It really paid off in the end. Both men continue to fight over their son, Ryan. And while sometimes child actors don't work out as they get older, and sometimes they have to be recast, I think it's really nice that Cameron Crovetti continues to not only do a good job, but actually evolve as an actor. So they can keep him and it doesn't break the continuity of the show. Is he Homelander Jr.? Is he Butcher Jr.? Is he somewhere in between? Or maybe he's even his own damn person. I'm excited to find out. It's getting really fantastic to see this storyline play out after being teased all this time. You know, in the past, because he was so young, he was just like on the fringe of these discussions and they couldn't really dive into it. But now, oh, we're really getting into the what's gonna happen with Ryan. And it's really as much fun as you would hope, with a lot of unexpected surprises. Another surprise is that it's shocking how much screen time new characters Firecracker and Sage get this season. Like, as much time as Homelander. A lot of screen time. And both new characters, the reason they have so much screen time is because they are crucial to the season 4 storyline. Valerie Curry is freakishly accurate in her role. So much so that's part of why I think the character might actually resonate, after all, with MAGA fans. Like, you know, a lot of actors say you got to understand what makes your character tick. They believe in what they're doing, and Curry is like an amazing example of that. While Susan Hayward's Sage is not only very well written, but also very well played by Hayward. She might just be super smart, right? But that ends up not being just. It becomes like a genuinely good power. You know, you might think in a show where, I guess, particularly on a show, again, as I just said, where there actually isn't that much fighting, Sage becomes, crucial, right? The Boys season 4 makes her pivotal, but also layers in some kinks, because this is The Boys after all. I'm excited to talk to you about that as well. Chase Crawford's The Deep and Claudia Dumit's Victoria Newman also really step up this season and do a fantastic job with their additional screen time. It's particularly nice to see Crawford's The Deep, who has evolved from a Mimbo who's often the butt of jokes into a character who I think, after this season, will be fans' favorite member of the Seven after Homelander. He really steps up. But don't worry, he retains his Mimbo and butt qualities, which of course is what we first loved about him. And think about it, again, dude never uses his superpowers, really, ever. That's the brilliance of this show. He just walks around in like an Aquaman suit talking about it, but he never actually does anything with those powers. And yet he still feels fully fleshed out. Incredible. And other actors get the chance to shine too. The Boys has a huge cast at this point, and that they can balance them all out while adding new substantial characters, as I said, with incredible amounts of screen time, and yet you still don't feel like any of the holdover characters got shortchanged. I mean, that's really impressive. Mother's Milk has some nice moments too, and A-Train gets another fantastic storyline this season. Both of them are really good characters, but I think what's holding them both back is that they're both just like cool dudes, right? Like, they're awesome, but they don't have any quirks that make their scenes stand out on a show like this, like Homelander, Butcher, or The Deep. And as for everybody else in the show, I'm sure some of you are like, what about Jeffrey Dean Morgan? Well, I can't talk about anybody else without giving spoilers, so you'll just have to wait till we talk about the episodes week to week. I will say, what about Huey? That for the first time, he kind of takes a back seat. I think because Ryan has a bigger role and takes up some of his screen time. Not just his screen time, but, a lot of Huey was his relationship with Butcher, father-son or the brother dynamic. But now Butcher's like focused on being sick and focused on saving Ryan. So he doesn't really have time for Huey, right? And then also, of course, Huey's other big connection on the show is Starlight. And while you'll see, she's plenty distracted this season as well. Erin Moriarty continues to do a great job, but her role this season becomes so dramatic that she's no longer allowed to have any fun as a character. In fact, she also takes such a mean attitude that seems to come out of nowhere towards Butcher and also A-Train that I think her character becomes a little bit less likable. In fact, she reminds me of what unfortunately happened with Evangeline Lilly's The Wasp, kind of becoming like a wet blanket in the group. She does get something very interesting to do at the end of the season. It wasn't as cool as maybe it could have been, but it was so cool that, it was hard to ruin. And I look forward to discussing it with you. I was really surprised how little Gen V factored into this season, especially because it seemed like it was going to be such a big part of it at the end of Gen V. I mean, The Boys is making fun of Marvel here a lot, but then they make the same mistake of not tightly tying their properties together, which of course was what made Marvel such a big deal in the first place. Elements of Gen V definitely come into play here, but the show itself, season 4, catches you up within the show. There's no reason to watch Gen V to prepare for season 4, except for the fact that it's a really good show. Which Gen V character do you think gets the most screen time in The Boys season 4? Tech Knight. Tech Night. Ah, that episode. Yikes. That's one episode for sure you're going to want to watch alone, where nobody can see your screen. Oh, kinky. Once again, I think The Boys is brilliant. So much so that it's, kind of ruining all of their superhero content, which just seems milk toast in comparison, aka weak sauce. I really just can't wait for you to see all these episodes so that we can talk about all the amazing details with my weekly breakdowns that are coming up fast, because later this week, the 3 episodes drop Thursday evening. I'm very excited to talk. I believe sometimes they drop them a little early. They've been dropping things on Prime Video like on Wednesday. I'll be ready for either one. And then we have a lot to talk about right out of the gate. All right, so until then, share your thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.